What is going on YouTube? What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Peacemaker back with another video. In this video here, I will be covering what I did with my Garuda build. But before we get into that, I actually want to brief y'all as to one detail that I did notice upon the most recent update. So if you go to your map, in my original season 5 preparation video, we had 13 days before season 5 was supposed to begin. Well, with the most recent update, it is now 39 days before season 5 begins. Now, upon noticing that detail, I took some time and actually watched the developer live stream. And what I'll do, I'll add a link to that video that I'll watch in the description. But I did take a couple key notes. I'm not going to really run it up too long. And one of the notes was the seasonal reset. They did mention that they were trying to change their approach as to how they were going to do the seasonal reset going forward with Skull and Bones. That may be the reason why season 5 was pushed back. Another note that I made, they did mention also that large ships will be coming to the game. I'm not exactly sure when. It may be later on this year. Fingers crossed that we get that. Another note that I made was they mentioned something about competitive PvP mode, which is the main thing I'm looking forward to going into season 5. And for my last two notes, they did mention also something about a map expansion, and lastly something about a boss arena. I believe that they're going for a level 17 B.K.W.R type approach. Maybe it'll be a call to arms to whatever elite captain, which for the most part most elite captains get bum rush anyway. And lastly, for players like myself who's predominantly solo, that is going to be just a little bit of an inconvenience, but it's not going to be the end of the game. That's pretty much it for the briefing. Let's go ahead and get into what I did with my Garuda build. Now let's start with the basics. Garuda, there it is. Now the Garuda is a DPS style ship. It specializes in dealing damage and status effects. The DPS favors an aggressive playing style. Now before I go any further, I got to get this off my chest. This ship here alone has changed PvP in this game. It was already bad enough that most people didn't like PvP in this game, but this ship here alone has made PvP so unbalanced, it's almost unenjoyable. And then lastly, with that being said, with the aggressive playing style, what I'll do towards the end of the video, I will actually show you what you might experience in a hostile takeover next season. It is a possibility, but we'll say that towards the end of the video. Let's go and get right into the perks. Now, the first perk of the Garuda is Deadeye, which it says weapon damage is increased based on how far you are from the target, capped at 80%. Piercing weapons deal 20% more damage when your whole health is 40% or lower, increases armor by 1,000, and trimming no longer costs stamina for 10 seconds. This effect has a cooldown for 40 seconds. Now, when I was building my Garuda, I kept in mind that 40% mark where I would get that increased armor by 1,000, which I'll explain that once we get into the armor and furniture. Now, the other perk of the Garuda is the revolver, and the revolver is going to increase weapon damage by 30% when hitting a target with puncture. Now, with the puncture effect, from what I've experienced, it's essentially where you take so much damage where your opponent has put enough damage on you where they broke through your armor, and for a duration of time, you actually take increased damage. Now for the next part of the revolver, the long gun is no longer a top deck only weapon when equipped at the bow, meaning the front of your ship. Long guns equipped at the bow deal 10% less damage and have 20% longer reload time. So keep that in mind with whatever weapons you decide to equip to the bow. And with the revolver, the standard 2 shots that you would normally get with the long guns on any other ship, you now have 6 shots instead of just 2. Now let's get right into what I did with my armor. Now, my armor of choice is the Leviathan, and I'm gonna explain why as I go. But first, it says the armor rating on the Leviathan is 1,150. Again, I built my Garuda with the 40% mark in mind, with that 1,000 armor increase once my whole health gets below 40%, which will boost that armor rating to 2,150. The other reason I went with the Leviathan, it also says I have 35% piercing damage resistance, I'm assuming. But the main reason I really wanted to go with the Leviathan, because of the perks, which the first perk is Hydromaniac. Every knot of sail speed increases armor by 1%. Now, if I remember correctly, the Garuda caps out top speed at 16 knots. So you're looking at a 16% armor increase while you're sailing. The other perk of the Leviathan is Impenetrable, which is going to reduce weak point damage by 20%. Now, if you're in a Garuda, more than likely, if you're in a PvP, chance of you coming across another Garuda is pretty likely. And with that 20% weak spot damage, since this ship specializes in long distance shooting anyway, that is an added bonus to your defense. Now let's get right into what I did with my furniture. Now for my furniture slot 1, again I'm keeping in mind that 40% mark with my whole health. And for my furniture slot 1, I went with the war drums, and it says while trimming reduces crew stamina depletion by 50%, and it increases armor rating by 200. Now if I go back to the Leviathan, the base of it is 1,150. We increase that by 200, that makes it 1,350. And again, keep in mind, once your whole health gets below that 40% mark, that increases it another 1,000, which caps out at 2,350. Which is quite a bit of armor, considering that this ship is specialized in damage output and not defense. So if I can go with increased armor and in addition to that 20% damage to the weak points, it's an added bonus to my defense. Now for my furniture slot 2, I went with the Tuna Station 1, which is going to increase secondary damage of torpedoes by 17%. It's going to increase projectile speed of torpedoes by 10%. It's also going to restore 5% crew stamina per second while out of combat. I'm really trying hard to get away from torpedoes, but they have been really good to me. I do apologize about that. Now for my furniture slot 3, since this ship specializes in doing piercing damage anyway, I went with the high velocity kegs, which is going to increase secondary damage of piercing weapons by 15%. It's also going to increase maximum range of piercing weapons by 8%. Now with this 15% secondary damage increase, that's going to build up that puncture stat a little bit quicker if you're in the gondola and not on the opposite end. Now for my furniture slot 4, I went with the Lamari 1, which is going to increase crew stamina recovery speed by 13%. It's also going to increase maximum stamina by 5%. And it's also going to increase torn sail charge by 3%. Now, before I go any further, I know a lot of people kind of went crazy with this build. And again, I mentioned that this ship here alone has made the PvP aspect so unleveled. So I didn't really want to go to the point where you can't go toe to toe with this ship. I didn't want to make it a one-sided fight. It's not enjoyable if the other person doesn't get a chance to fight back. Now, in addition to the war drones where I'm reducing my crew stamina depletion by 50, this is going to help me recover that crew stamina back by 13%. Now, with the increased torn cell charge, I'll get into that when I get to the weapons. That is going to be a really clutch as far as like really like chasing people down. Now, for my furniture slot 5, I went with the organ harvesting station, which is going to increase rocket damage by 5% for every 20% of hull health missing on player's ship. Now, with the 40% mark in mind, if my health is that low and I can increase my damage output of my rockets for every 20%, I'm going to increase my damage output even though my health is low with this furniture here. In addition to, the organ harvesting station also increases secondary damage of rockets by 10%. When you combine that with the high velocity kegs, which you get a 15% damage increase, secondary damage increase from piercing weapons anyway, which I will explain once I get to the weapons. Lastly, reduces reload time of rockets by 5%. Lastly, my personal favorite, Maintenance Forge 1, which is going to restore 1% severe damage per second while out of combat. I could have swapped to another furniture, but honestly, I hate having a dot and repair that severe damage, and this furniture here actually would help keep me in the fight. Now, granted, if I could remove it, yes, I can increase my DPS, but again, I didn't want to go for something that was so overpowered that it would be a one-sided fight. Now, let's get right into what I did with my weapons. Now, for my bow, I went with these Scarlet Long Nines. I've been rocking with these since season 1. Even though I know these not the best long guns, these to me have been the most reliable. Now, the perks of the Scarlet Long Nines, it says Mass Breaker. Deals 7,000 damage after torn cell effect is applied. Now, with my furniture with the Lamari 1, I'm getting a increased cell charge speed of 3%. Keep that in mind. And also with the Scarlet Long Nines, since this ship specializes in doing piercing, the Scarlet Long Nines are the only long gun that does piercing level 3 that I have found. So that is an added bonus to the Scarlet Long Nines. Yes, it may not do as much damage as the other long guns, but that level 3 piercing makes up for it. And then lastly, paired with the Lamari 1, the Scarlet Long Nines has tearing level 2, which is going to increase damage by 50% when hitting cells, which is a added bonus to it. Now for my port and my starboard side, I'm trying to get away from torpedoes, y'all, but they've been good to me. I do not know how to pronounce the name of this torpedo, but the main perk of it is Sunder. It says once armed, torpedoes increase speed by 100% and penetrate through target ships. It also reduces armor by 200 for 10 seconds. It does level 2 piercing and level 2 flooding, which is not a bad deal in the first place. Now for my stern, I actually went with the Moon Megs 3. The Garuda specializes in doing piercing, so I purely focused on piercing, and this is the only bombard that does any piercing damage. Now granted, it specializes in doing damage to structures, but since the Garuda specializes in doing piercing, me having a bombard that actually does piercing damage is an added bonus. Plus the damage output is 4,428. And if I'm being chased with the bombard, it gives me an area of effect to where I can actually defend myself if I'm being chased. Now, lastly, for my auxiliary, I went with the Thermites 3. This weapon here is also made for doing damage to structures, but it's also the only auxiliary I found that does any piercing damage. Granted, it's only a level 1 piercing damage, which I'm gonna go back to the moon mags. Those also do level 1 piercing damage. But since we're on a piercing damage ship, it is a added bonus to the damage output. And that's pretty much it for Faith Chaser. Before I let you go, I'm actually gonna show you a possibility that you may experience in PvP next season. We're going to go to my test build. I've already got it set up. Now, more than likely, a lot of players are going to lean on this ship going into next season. And this is not, I don't believe this is going to be their furniture setup. I just did this for display purposes. But the main thing you want to keep an eye out on, I know most players are going to go with the high velocity kegs, which is going to increase secondary damage of piercing weapons by 15%. And lastly, I know, I don't want to say I know, there's a really high possibility that most people are going to be running the B.K.W.R, which if you remember in the beginning of the video, with the revolver perk of the Garuda, there is a 10% damage reduction to weapons to your bow. There's also a 20% reload increase to weapons equipped to your bow. This furniture here kind of eliminates that. Now the B.K.W.R is going to reduce the reload time of toxic weapons by 15%. It's also going to increase the damage from toxic weapons by 8%. So not only are you making up a little bit of that damage reduction from the front, you're also making up for some of the reload time, which is not too much of a difference, but it does help. Now, more than likely as well with the armor that most people, I would say most people, I'm not trying to jump to conclusions. Some people, I believe, are going to be rocking the immortal vessel. Since the Garuda specializes in damage output and not so much in whole health, by having the immortal vessel, it is a second line of defense just in case the fight becomes close quarters. But the main thing you really want to focus on, I believe, what may happen next season, you want to watch out for the players who are going to be using the B.K.W.R. Yes, the setup is nice. I get it, but this setup here is going to make it a one-sided fight to where essentially the other person can't fight back with this setup. Now the B.K.W.R.s have the highest damage output as far as the long guns. Now I'm gonna scroll down to here. Now the B.K.W.R.s is a toxic weapon, and you can see on the perks it says toxic level 3. Hits from this weapon sap crew stamina. If you don't have stamina, you cannot brace. If you can't brace, you take more damage. On top of the puncture stat, once they break your armor, you're going to take even more damage. Lastly, it's going to add 20% damage that cannot be blocked by bracing. That is going to be really tough to beat. And it also does level 2 piercing. More than likely, they're going to have that on their bow. More than likely, their port, their starboard, their stern, and possibility they may have this crew stamina depletion effect with their auxiliary as well. So I actually want to show you something. With that reduced reload time and that damage output increase, you're essentially going against a selling machine gun. That's not including if they decide to eat the rum fruit cake, which is a 5% increase in the reload time. Now you will already, let's say this is you, right? You're already outgunned. I have 6 shots on the front, you have 2 shots. If I come at an angle, there's an additional 4 shots compared to your 4 shots. So 6 and 4 is 10 on the offensive end. On the defensive end, it's 6. 10 guns to 6, man. It's like your odds are against you. And with that reduced reloading time and them draining your stamina, you're not going to stand much of a chance. But not all hope is lost. In my next video, if you made it this far, keep an eye out for this ship here. I have not thought of a name for it just yet, but man, I built this ship to counter the B.K.W.R. I'm not trying to save the game, but I do want people to have an enjoyable experience playing the game. And it's not enjoyable when you're outgunned, your stamina is gone, and not only that, the target is so far away where you can't completely be accurate. So with this build here, just here kind of closed that gap quite a bit to where the odds can actually be in your favor, even if they're rocking the immortal vessel. And I will explain that in my next video, but I'm not really trying to run it up too long. I think I talked your ears off long enough. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the views, and I will see y'all in the next video. Take it easy.